Welcome! Today, we're diving into the topic of self-help eviction, a term that might sound unfamiliar, but is crucial for both landlords and tenants to understand. Self-help eviction refers to actions taken by a landlord to remove a tenant from a rental property without going through the legal eviction process. This can include changing the locks, shutting off utilities, or removing a tenant's belongings. Understanding what constitutes self-help eviction is important because it's not just a matter of property rights, but also of legal boundaries and tenant protections. Let's start by exploring the basic definition and why it's such a controversial practice in rental law. A self-help eviction is when a landlord tries to force a tenant out of a rental property without using the court system. This means the landlord takes matters into their own hands, bypassing the legal process required for eviction. Common examples include changing the locks on the doors, turning off the water or electricity, or physically removing the tenant's belongings from the property. These actions are generally illegal in most jurisdictions because they violate the tenant's right to due process. The law requires landlords to follow specific steps, including providing notice and obtaining a court order, before a tenant can be legally removed. Landlords might be tempted to use self-help eviction because the legal eviction process can be time-consuming and costly. They may feel frustrated if a tenant is not paying rent or is violating lease terms and want a quick resolution. However, taking shortcuts by locking out a tenant or removing their belongings can backfire. Not only is it illegal in most places, but it can also lead to lawsuits, fines, and even criminal charges against the landlord. Understanding the motivations behind self-help eviction helps explain why it still happens, despite the risks involved. There are several tactics that landlords might use in an attempt to force tenants out without going through the courts. These include changing the locks on the rental unit, shutting off essential utilities like water, gas, or electricity, removing doors or windows, or even physically removing a tenant's possessions. Some landlords may also harass or threaten tenants to make them leave. All of these actions are considered self-help eviction and are typically illegal. Tenants have the right to remain in their home until a court order says otherwise. One of the most common forms of self-help eviction is when a landlord changes the locks on a tenant's door without a court order. This action prevents the tenant from accessing their home and is a clear violation of tenant rights in most jurisdictions. Even if the tenant is behind on rent or has broken lease terms, the landlord must still follow the legal eviction process. Changing the locks without proper legal authority can result in serious consequences for the landlord, including being sued for damages. Another illegal tactic is shutting off essential utilities like water, electricity, or gas to force a tenant to leave. This not only disrupts the tenant's daily life, but can also create unsafe living conditions. Most states have laws that specifically prohibit landlords from using utility shutoffs as a way to evict tenants. If a landlord does this, tenants may be entitled to compensation, and the landlord could face penalties or fines. The law is clear. Tenants have the right to basic utilities until a legal eviction is completed. Physically removing a tenant's belongings from the rental property is another form of self-help eviction. This can include putting furniture, clothes, or other personal items outside or in storage without the tenant's consent. Such actions are almost always illegal unless the landlord has obtained a court order. Tenants have the right to their possessions and to remain in the property until the legal process is complete. Landlords who remove belongings without permission can be held liable for damages and may have to pay for lost or damaged items. Some landlords may resort to harassment or threats in an attempt to get tenants to leave. This can include repeated phone calls, unannounced visits, or making threats of physical harm or legal action. Harassment is not only unethical, but also illegal in most places. Tenants who experience harassment have the right to report it to authorities and may be able to take legal action against the landlord. The law protects tenants from being forced out through intimidation or fear. To legally evict a tenant, landlords must follow a specific process set by state and local laws. This usually involves giving the tenant written notice, filing an eviction lawsuit in court, and waiting for a judge to issue an eviction order. Only after the court grants the eviction can the landlord have the tenant removed, often with the help of law enforcement. Skipping any of these steps and taking matters into their own hands is what makes self-help eviction illegal. The legal process is designed to protect both parties' rights. The first step in a legal eviction is usually serving a notice to quit. This is a written document that tells the tenant they must leave the property by a certain date, usually because of unpaid rent or a lease violation. The notice must follow specific legal requirements, including the amount of time given to the tenant to move out. If the tenant does not leave by the deadline, the landlord can then file an eviction lawsuit in court. This step is essential for protecting the tenant's right to due process. If the tenant does not move out after receiving a notice to quit, the landlord must file an eviction lawsuit, sometimes called an unlawful detainer action. This involves submitting paperwork to the local court and paying a filing fee. The court will then schedule a hearing where both the landlord and tenant can present their sides. This process ensures that tenants have a chance to defend themselves before being removed from their home. It's a key part of the legal protections against self-help eviction. During the court hearing, both the landlord and tenant have the opportunity to present evidence and arguments. The judge will listen to both sides and make a decision based on the law and the facts presented. If the judge rules in favor of the landlord, an eviction order will be issued. If the tenant wins, they may be allowed to stay in the property. This process ensures fairness and prevents landlords from using self-help eviction tactics. If a court orders an eviction, law enforcement officers such as sheriffs or marshals are typically responsible for carrying it out. The landlord cannot remove the tenant themselves. Law enforcement ensures that the eviction is done safely and legally, protecting both the tenants and landlord's rights. This step is crucial in preventing self-help eviction and maintaining order during the process. It also helps avoid confrontations and potential violence. Tenants have important rights during the eviction process. They must receive proper notice, have the opportunity to respond in court, and cannot be removed without a court order. Even if a tenant is behind on rent or has broken the lease, they are still entitled to due process. If a landlord tries to use self-help eviction tactics, tenants can seek legal help and may be entitled to compensation. Knowing your rights is the best defense against illegal eviction. Landlords who attempt self-help eviction can face serious consequences. These may include being sued by the tenant for damages, paying fines, or even facing criminal charges. Courts often award tenants compensation for lost or damaged property, emotional distress, and sometimes punitive damages. The law is designed to discourage landlords from bypassing the legal process and to protect tenants from being unfairly forced out of their homes. If a tenant is the victim of self-help eviction, there are several remedies available. Tenants can file a lawsuit against the landlord for damages, seek an injunction to regain access to the property, or report the landlord to local authorities. In some cases, tenants may be entitled to stay in the property and receive compensation for any losses. The law provides these remedies to ensure that tenants are protected from illegal eviction tactics. Tenants who experience self-help eviction should report the incident to local housing authorities, tenant advocacy groups, or the police. Documenting the situation with photos, written records, and witness statements can help build a strong case. Authorities can investigate and take action against landlords who break the law. Reporting illegal eviction not only helps the individual tenant, but also protects others from similar treatment in the future. Tenant advocacy groups play a vital role in protecting renters from self-help eviction. These organizations provide legal advice, help tenants understand their rights, and may offer representation in court. They also work to educate the public and influence policy changes to strengthen tenant protections. If you're facing eviction, reaching out to a tenant advocacy group can be a valuable resource for support and guidance. Laws regarding self-help eviction vary by state, but most states strictly prohibit it. Some states have specific statutes that outline what landlords can and cannot do, while others rely on general tenant protection laws. It's important for both landlords and tenants to understand the laws in their state to avoid legal trouble. Consulting with a local attorney or tenant advocacy group can help clarify the rules and ensure everyone's rights are respected. While self-help eviction is generally illegal, there may be rare exceptions. For example, if a tenant has abandoned the property or poses an immediate threat to health and safety, some states allow landlords to take limited action without a court order. However, these situations are strictly defined by law, and landlords must be careful not to overstep their authority. When in doubt, it's always best to seek legal advice before taking any action. Let's look at a real-life example. A landlord, frustrated by unpaid rent, changed the locks on a tenant's apartment without a court order. The tenant returned home to find themselves locked out and their belongings inaccessible. The tenant contacted a lawyer and sued the landlord for illegal eviction. The court ruled in favor of the tenant, awarding damages for emotional distress and lost property. This case highlights the risks landlords face when attempting self-help eviction. In another case, a landlord shut off the water and electricity to force a tenant to move out. The tenant documented the shutoff and filed a complaint with local authorities. The landlord was fined and ordered to restore the utilities immediately. The tenant was also awarded compensation for the inconvenience and stress caused by the illegal action. This example shows how the law protects tenants from self-help eviction tactics. A landlord removed a tenant's furniture and personal items, placing them on the curb without a court order. The tenant returned to find their belongings missing or damaged. After contacting a tenant advocacy group, the tenant filed a lawsuit and won compensation for the lost items and emotional distress. This case demonstrates the importance of following the legal eviction process and the consequences of self-help eviction. The best way to prevent self-help eviction is for landlords and tenants to understand their rights and responsibilities. Landlords should always follow the legal eviction process, no matter how frustrating the situation may be. Tenants should know what actions are illegal and seek help if they experience self-help eviction. Open communication and knowledge of the law can help avoid conflicts and protect everyone involved. Many disputes between landlords and tenants can be resolved through open and honest communication. If a tenant is struggling to pay rent or has violated the lease, discussing the issue and trying to reach an agreement can prevent the need for eviction. Mediation services are also available in many areas to help both parties find a solution. Taking the time to talk can save time, money, and stress for everyone involved. Mediation is a process where a neutral third party helps landlords and tenants resolve disputes without going to court. This can be a faster and less expensive way to address issues like unpaid rent or lease violations. Alternative dispute resolution methods can help both sides reach a fair agreement and avoid the risks of self-help eviction. Many communities offer free or low-cost mediation services for housing disputes. Education is key to preventing self-help eviction. Landlords should be aware of the legal process for eviction and the consequences of breaking the law. Many local governments and housing organizations offer training and resources to help landlords understand their responsibilities. Staying informed can help landlords avoid costly mistakes and maintain good relationships with tenants. Tenants also benefit from understanding their rights and the eviction process. Knowing what constitutes self-help eviction and how to respond can help tenants protect themselves. Many tenant advocacy groups and legal aid organizations offer workshops, guides, and hotlines for renters. Education empowers tenants to stand up for their rights and seek help when needed. Legal aid organizations provide free or low-cost legal services to tenants facing eviction. These groups can help tenants understand their rights, represent them in court, and fight against illegal eviction tactics. Access to legal aid is especially important for low-income renters who may not be able to afford a private attorney. Legal aid helps level the playing field and ensures everyone has access to justice. A clear and well-written lease agreement can help prevent misunderstandings that lead to eviction. Both landlords and tenants should read and understand the terms of the lease before signing. The lease should outline the rights and responsibilities of both parties, including what happens if rent is not paid or the lease is violated. Understanding the lease can help avoid disputes and reduce the risk of self-help eviction. Keeping detailed records is important for both landlords and tenants. This includes copies of the lease, payment receipts, notices, and any communication between the parties. Good documentation can be crucial evidence if a dispute arises or if legal action is needed. It also helps both sides stay organized and avoid misunderstandings that could lead to self-help eviction. Property managers often act on behalf of landlords and are responsible for handling tenant issues, including evictions. It's important for property managers to be trained in the legal eviction process and to avoid self-help tactics. Professional property management can help ensure that all actions are legal and that tenants' rights are respected. This reduces the risk of lawsuits and maintains a positive rental environment. Self-help eviction can permanently damage the relationship between landlords and tenants. Trust is lost, and future cooperation becomes difficult. Even if the landlord is frustrated, using illegal tactics can lead to long-term problems, including lawsuits and reputational harm. Maintaining a professional and respectful relationship is always in the best interest of both parties. Being subjected to self-help eviction can be a traumatic experience for tenants. Suddenly, losing access to your home, belongings, or basic utilities can cause stress, anxiety, and even health problems. The law recognizes these harms, which is why tenants may be awarded damages for emotional distress in court. Protecting tenants from illegal eviction is not just about property, it's about dignity and well-being. Landlords who engage in self-help eviction risk significant financial losses. Lawsuits, fines, and compensation payments can add up quickly. In addition, landlords may have trouble renting the property in the future due to a damaged reputation. Following the legal process may take more time, but it protects landlords from costly mistakes and ensures a fair outcome for everyone. Some landlords carry insurance policies that cover legal expenses related to eviction. However, most insurance does not cover illegal actions like self-help eviction. Engaging in self-help tactics can void insurance coverage and leave landlords responsible for all costs. It's important to understand what your policy covers and to always act within the law. During emergencies, such as natural disasters or public health crises, special rules may apply to evictions. Some areas temporarily ban all evictions, while others provide additional protections for tenants. However, self-help eviction remains illegal even during emergencies. Landlords must follow any new rules and continue to respect tenants' rights. Self-help eviction is not just an issue in the United States. Many countries have laws prohibiting landlords from removing tenants without a court order. The details may vary, But the principle of protecting tenants' rights is widely recognized. Learning from international best practices can help improve local laws and ensure fair treatment for all renters. To sum up, self-help eviction is when a landlord tries to remove a tenant without following the legal process. This includes changing locks, shutting off utilities, or removing belongings. These actions are illegal in most places and can lead to serious consequences for landlords. Tenants have the right to due process and can seek legal remedies if they are victims of self-help eviction. Understanding the law protects both landlords and tenants. If you want to learn more about self-help eviction, there are many resources available. Local housing authorities, tenant advocacy groups, and legal aid organizations can provide information and assistance. Many websites also offer guides and FAQs on tenant rights and the eviction process. Staying informed is the best way to protect yourself and avoid legal trouble. If you're facing eviction or have questions about your rights, it's important to seek legal help. Attorneys, legal aid organizations, and tenant advocacy groups can provide advice and representation. Acting quickly can help protect your rights and prevent illegal eviction. Don't hesitate to reach out for support if you need it. Landlords should always follow the legal eviction process and avoid self-help tactics. Consulting with an attorney or property management professional can help ensure compliance with the law. Maintaining good communication with tenants and keeping thorough records can also prevent disputes. Remember, following the law protects your interests and helps maintain a positive rental business. Tenants should know their rights and be prepared to take action if they experience self-help eviction. Keeping documentation, seeking legal help, and reporting illegal actions are all important steps. Staying informed and proactive can help tenants protect their home and well-being. Remember, you have the right to due process and fair treatment under the law. Self-help eviction is a serious issue that affects both landlords and tenants. By understanding the law and respecting each other's rights, we can prevent conflicts and ensure fair treatment for everyone. Whether you're a landlord or a tenant, staying informed and following the proper process is the best way to protect yourself and your property. Thank you for joining us on this important topic. In conclusion, self-help eviction is not only illegal, but also harmful to both landlords and tenants. The legal eviction process exists to protect everyone's rights and ensure fairness. If you're ever unsure about your rights or responsibilities, seek professional advice and avoid taking matters into your own hands. Knowledge and communication are the keys to a safe and respectful rental experience for all.